Good evening, welcome to Simpson at 8. We celebrated World Press Freedom Day this week with the theme Journalism Under Digital Siege. Fijian media and journalists have been under the spotlight from government, the opposition and the public over what they report, over what they don't report, and how they report. We have come through periods of coups, of censorship, intimidation, to life under heavy fines under the Media Industry Development Authority, to covering cyclones, national elections, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining me this evening to discuss challenges facing Fiji media and the journey ahead, we have Fiji Times Editor-in-Chief Fred Wesley and Communications Fiji Limited News Director Vijay Narayan. Colleagues, welcome to the show.
Bula, thank you.
So, Vijay, let's start with you. What are the main challenges facing media today, facing you today?
Well, the challenges have always been there. The media industry is it's that industry where you will face challenges on a daily basis, where it's in relation to the different events you have to cover, the different staffing issues you need to look at, and the execution of what the people expect from us. I mean, it's a huge task to ensure. We do about 60 bulletins in a day in 3 different languages, in English, Hindustani, Itoke, and making sure that it all is satisfactory for the people, for the audience. Because at the end of the day, the biggest objective is to ensure the people get what they want.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough industry. It's a tough business to be in.
It is.
And then also you talk about the internal and then also the external factors, the challenges that you
External factors, yes, of course. You may have some days with smooth sailing. Everybody will speak to you nicely and you'll be in good terms, but there will be rough times, and that's what the journalists know, and the other support staff, the camera person. With this digital age, we are not just a traditional radio organization. We have continued to grow into the digital space. We have a website, Fiji Village, which is mentioned a lot, and we have all these social media platforms. So it's no longer just sticking to the traditional medium, but growing into and expanding into, and that's where the world is heading.
Fred, if you can come in there. So the challenges from the print side, we've heard from the broadcast side. Now, what do you see as the main challenges facing Fijian media and print media today?
Well, as my colleague Vijay has mentioned, there are many challenges, and we face challenges on a daily basis. Challenges differ, but at the end of the day, I suppose for all media companies, there are challenges in terms of staffing. We have that. There are challenges in terms of maturity, in terms of experience. In the newspaper business, we have challenges as well in the various departments. Sub-editors department, we have writers, feature writers, we have photography. We carrying a torch that was lit back in 1869 on September 4. We are carrying. We also realize that the people of this country they need information, and for us, we're in the business of providing that information. So challenges are there to be faced. Challenges are also there to be overcome, and it's just the way things are, the reality of the matter.
And a key aspect of the role that the media plays is media freedom. Yeah. Is there media freedom in Fiji?
I would say yes. I mean, we report on a daily basis everything that's going on, and we have that freedom to impart information. Of course, at times, as I said earlier, it gets rough when you're trying to get information, but you continue to do that. Of course, there's limitations in the Constitution when it comes to national security, public interest, and the media has a clear code of ethics, which was formulated by the Fiji Media Council and is taken word for word and is in the media. It was previously a decree and now a Media Industry Development Act. So based on that, the code of ethics is clear, the do's and don'ts. And if we follow that through, nobody can really take you to task if we're sticking to a code of ethics.
And Fred, media freedom remains, we have freedom. I mean, you can see with your headlines, you're choosing your headlines, you're choosing your front page, right? But it comes that you have to be fighting for it every day.
I suppose so. We will all differ in how we perceive what constitutes good news. And I suppose people will have their opinions on whether there is media freedom. I'd like to raise an issue about, well, if there is media freedom, obviously there has to be attention placed on the act itself. And there's a part of the act, part 4, content regulation, where it deals with the kind of content that we can publish or we can print. Sections 22, 23, and 24, very, very important parts of that Media Industry Development Act. Section 22 states that no media organization shall publish or print anything that's against the national interest or that's against public interest, or shall bring about communal discord. And the penalty for a breach of this is on Section 24. But let me take you back to Section 22. Section 22 is interesting because everything that we print or we publish is of national interest, and obviously is of public interest. Everything that you print or publish. So the unfortunate thing here is that there is no accompanying paragraph or no accompanying subsection to clarify what's of national interest and what we are supposed to be breaching. So in a nutshell, what we have here is we have guidelines that we need to work within. So as Vijay said, you can talk about media freedom and say, yes, we have media freedom, but at the same time, I'm mindful of the boundaries that we need to work within. And it doesn't mean that that we don't have that. Basically, all I'm saying is we have guidelines, and over the years we have managed to adapt and embrace these guidelines and work within the confines of these guidelines, and that's just how we are operating. But in saying that as well, you are still able to print and publish what you would like to print and publish, and I think that's important.
But you're saying, let's talk about that MIDA decree, MIDA Act. You've stated some of your main concerns.
Yeah.
No reporting that's against the public interest, that's against the national interest, or can cause communal discord.
Yeah.
So no one's defined what's against.
No.
And that's a very interesting thing, because then you're sort of hesitating and cross-checking. And the other thing is, what are the fines? It's quite heavy fines.
Yes.
And is that a hindrance?
Yes.
In essence, to the media freedom?
Well, it definitely has to be a hindrance. It definitely has to be something that weighs greatly and weighs heavily on the minds of any editor. Because basically what you have on Section 24 are the fines. So let's say there's a breach, and you're supposed to have breached Section 22, either something that went against the national interest or something that went against public interest. The fine is, upon conviction, a company or media company is liable to a fine of not exceeding $100,000. An editor is also fined or liable to a fine not exceeding $25,000 and to a possible jail term of 2 years. These are the fines. This is the law. These are fines that sort of linked straight back to sections 22 and 23.
So share the same concerns, Vijay?
Well, I'm saying, definitely it's time that we review the Media Industry Development Act, and it's the suitable time, the right time to do that. We've highlighted that. There's other issues as well, Stanley. For example, I think it's limiting growth in the media industry. We have cross-media laws within and overseas shares, only 10% can be owned. So if we want the business to thrive, industry to grow, for example, if there's an organization which feels that they may get, say, 40% of shareholding, a foreign partner comes in, which will result in expansion and growth, it's a good thing. So right now, it's limiting growth as well. And the issue about cross-media is us as an organization, we will just have to stick to one medium. You cannot cross over. For example, my TV cannot cross over to have a newspaper tomorrow because the law limits that.
And in this digital age, there's room to expand into various, for instance, into broadcast and stuff. So, in terms of the MIDA decree, MIDA Act, it's quite interesting because, one, it's supposed to have set up a tribunal, and that hasn't been set up. I found in Parliament last year that even the Attorney General is not happy with the Act. I mean, the Act that the government itself put up. He said, why hasn't the Media Development Authority done anything about some of the falling standards? And in fact, there is a lapse on the part of the authority itself. And he said, and I think there are certain appointments that need to be made. So in terms of, before we go to the break, the effectiveness of MIDA, Fred.
Well, we all have our opinions on how effective MIDA is. For us as an organization, you actually focused on the act itself. So our work entails that. Our work is focused on ensuring that we work within the confines of the guidelines. And whatever else happens after that is that's besides the fact. For us right now, it's basically focusing on the guidelines and working and trying to work as best as we can within the guidelines. As I said, the penalties are huge, and that is something that hangs on my head every day, Monday to Sunday. It's not something that you can wish to go away and it goes away. It will not. It's there. It's there staring at you in the face, and it's something that you need to live with.
It's essentially the laws are enshrined in that act. But in terms of it's an organization itself, in terms of development, in terms of the issues, the other issues, they said that it hasn't been effective. In fact, it's been almost non-existent.
Whether it's effective or not, the fact is the law is in place. And we are governed by those laws. So as an independent media organization, as a publicly listed company, which CFL is, we have to follow the law. Any law that's in place, passed by Parliament, everyone is bound by it.
All right. You're watching Simpson at 8. We're discussing media freedom and issues affecting the media industry in Fiji. Don't go away, we'll be back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Simpson at 8. We're discussing media freedom and media issues in Fiji, and joined by Fred Wesley, the editor-in-chief of the Fiji Times, and Vijay Narayan, the news director of the Communications Fiji Limited. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking about the MIDA Act and the issues it entails. Now, one of the key things, obviously, you mentioned the Code of Ethics, free, fair, and balanced. Fair is being one of the things, and that's one of the big issues that we get attacked on. That whether we are balanced and fair, we get attacked from both sides all the time. So, one thing I wanted to talk about. I mean, both your names have been mentioned in Parliament, and in many statements about the reports done by your media organizations and all other media editors, but you two in particular. So there've been a lot of negative attacks, and I noticed Andy Selai in Parliament last year, who said, look at CFL. They will publish anything on their website and social media that the opposition says or anyone else who speaks against the government. Fred, they said, the Fiji Times publishes anti-government articles on its front page daily. So there's the perception from some of the leaders of bias. So let's talk about that. Are you biased?
First of all, Andy Selai has got freedom of speech to say that. And she said that in Parliament, and we reported on it, as we report on everything else. I think there's a misconception that we are biased. We're not biased. We are fair. We get the multiple voices on different issues. We cover all of them. At times, people do not want to respond. In the Code of Ethics, there is a section where you give an opportunity for people to respond. We definitely give that, and if people do not respond, an editorial decision is made. If the issue affects people, it has to be in the public interest that that issue is covered, irrespective of who is talking.
And that's the, you've responded to that. And then just recently, supervisor of elections, again, saying, Fiji Village, the type of reporting you're doing, you sent them questions and then you publish straight away, so what was your response to that?
Well, as we've put the facts out, we've clearly stated it. We did not publish the story straight away as claimed, as alleged. We had screenshots to prove it. We gave a time of about 2 hours for response because the meeting that was being questioned about was being held the following day. So there's a time limitation, but we did not print. It's been alleged that the questions were sent at 3 and it was the story went up at 3 straight away. That is incorrect.
All right. Fred, well, what about Fiji Times? What's your position? For the main thing that they like to say is the Fiji Times is anti-government. Is the Fiji Times anti-government?
That's a perception that's been around for quite some time. It's not a perception that we endorse, not a perception that we feel is right. But at the end of the day, what we are about is about the dissemination of information, fair and balanced. I suppose one of the issues that I've raised before this is the fact that we are not here to please the government. We are not here to make the government look good. Basically, we are here to disseminate information and hold the government to account. That is our role, one of our core roles. And in saying that, I'd also like to stress the fact that every day we'll have stories or reports that are positive about the government. So on any given day, if we have 10 stories on the government and the 9 are positive, 1 is negative, the chances are very high. Chances are quite high that we'll be pulled up for the 1 negative story. And that's just the way perceptions have been built over the years. And again, as I said earlier, it's not something that we can get rid of easily. But I suppose it's a work in progress, and it's something that we need to be hammering away at every day. As I said earlier, it's about being fair and balanced every day, and that has to come from within. For us as an organization, we believe in that. We believe in being fair. We believe in being balanced.
So you are saying that you do provide articles, coverage of articles sent by the government?
Yeah.
And also the criticisms of the government that takes place.
Well, if you just, and we're not broadcasting into empty space. Our audience, they know what we're covering. And I can tell you that there's a high percentage of government coverage on a daily basis because there's various things happening which affect the people, positive things which are covered. And if there's 1 or 2 stories where questions are being raised, then we always give whoever, government or opposition, the opportunity to reply, as dictated in the Code of Ethics.
And so people are, what you're saying is that people are not happy, so we'll only zero in on the story they're not liking, but we'll not say anything about the other stories or good coverage that you provide. So if you got audited, for instance, it will show you've given both sides a fair go. Would you agree, Fred?
I definitely agree. In fact, one of the things we believe in is if there are negative stories against the government, we have to allow them a right of response, and that is something that we go through on a daily basis. Stories are expected to be balanced, so it's straight from the chief of staff right down to the reporters. You get a story, and if there's a need for balance, it has to be done, and you have to follow through with that.
The other thing that I've spoken a few times, because this issue I've raised with the Attorney General, we've talked about, hey, how can we improve the relationship with the media? And he says, you do write for queries and ask for a balanced comment from a Attorney General. He says, I'm not responding to the Fiji Times because they're not giving my responses prominence. What's your response?
Well, I suppose, the key is allowing any government minister or anyone who has a story against them to respond. And for us, that is the first step. How the response is structured, will determine how the story comes out in the end.
Yeah.
But I think the
That is your editorial decision.
I think the challenge first up is getting that out and making sure that the processes are in place, the processes are followed through to ensure there's a response.
And no one's...
Can I just add one issue? The story is dictated by the issue that is covered. It's not based on personalities. And coming back to, we are reporting to an audience. So the issue dictates the story. And the other thing is to ensure that we do not have a situation in Fiji that journalists start getting asked questions. Why are you asking me that question? You're not supposed to ask me that question. That is restricting the media from doing its work.
Yeah. So before we go to the break, there's another... I mean, he made this comment when he was responding to Andy Selai's statement, and he wanted CFL and Fiji Times to basically declare that they are the position. He said, like, Fox News declares that they are Republican, and CNN is they are more pro-Democrat. New York Times is a more Democrat. He says there's nothing wrong with that for the newspapers or the media to declare stance. You can sell newspapers, you can have a radio station, no problem. You need to be upfront about it. If Fiji Times want to support a political party, I'm quoting Attorney General, or CFL, they should tell the public. Go ahead, and you cannot therefore hide when you have a particular agenda. You hide under the guise of the front of we are independent, we are unbiased, when you actually are. Please, there is nothing wrong with you supporting a particular party or particular philosophy. Fred, your response to him telling you...
Unfortunate, but again, as I've always said, we all have a right to opinions, and if that's the AG's opinion, obviously, and we at the Fiji Times, we will continue to say that we are not here to make the government look good. We're not here to please the government all the time. We're basically here to ensure that information is disseminated to the masses. Information is disseminated fairly and balanced to our readers, and that's the direction we've chosen. That is what we have chosen to do. And again, being fair and balanced, obviously, top criteria and a top on our listing of things that we must do daily.
Right. Vijay, final word before we go to the break?
We are independent. We stand for the people. We do not support any political party, and we will continue to do what we're doing, which is talking on behalf of the people.
We're hearing directly from the editors of the Fiji Times and news director of CFL discussing issues of media freedom and media issues that are raised constantly here in Fiji. You're watching Simpson at 8. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Simpson at 8. Fred Wesley, Fiji Times, and Vijay Narayan of CFL. Another issue, just before we would touch on elections and touch on the digital challenges, and I just wanted to touch on another issue that's been raised, is that the issue been raised by that there's lack of investigative, of independent research and reporting by the media in Fiji. They're saying, like, all the media is doing here in Fiji is a lot of a he said, she said. This is again from the Attorney General. I would like to make some general comments. I think one of the problems in Fiji has been the lack of focus by media organizations on development programs, on development economics. We have a post-colonial society. Our development agendas are different. We need to be able to have investigative journalism in those areas, or right up in those areas. Fred, is the Fiji Times doing reporting on development issues and is doing its own research when it's covering? Or it's a lot of he said or she said?
Definitely. But again, in saying that, I'm also mindful of our limitations. mindful of the fact that we have, right now we have a newsroom that is brimming with young journalists. And I also accept the fact that these young journalists, they need training, they need guidance, and that's the process that we are getting into now. We've actually started the process of empowering our young journalists, of training our young journalists, and really this process involves legal issues. So we have started off with legal training, and that's something we hope to continue with. We're looking at things like gender sensitivity, empowering them in that sense, and also we're looking at issues like that you've just raised, investigative reporting. As I said, it's for us. There's a transition that's happening right now. We realize that we're in a big year, election year, and we realize that we need to be fast-tracking a lot of our development programs, a lot of our training programs, and that's the direction we're taking right now.
Vijay, your response to this as well?
Yeah, we're just true believers of upskilling and development. I mean, it's an exciting industry to be in. There are always new things happening. So definitely everybody needs to continue to lift. As a nation, we need to lift. As a nation, we need to be open-minded. So ensuring that we do not shy away from issues raised by maybe the other side. If there is an issue of concern, of course you have a right to respond to it, give your side of the story, people understand it better, and verification of facts is very important. If the person who is supposed to verify certain information is stopping that from happening, it also becomes a concern, because then the people are left in the dark on what is really or truly happening.
And one of the key issues also facing, the lack of resources,
Yeah.
and the high turnover in the industry.
Yeah.
That's another issue, that's affecting a lot of the productivity.
Well, we battled through COVID-19.
COVID-19.
I mean, that's been a story in itself, that how the newsrooms have managed to go through the pandemic that affected the whole of the country, and we were expected to deliver. And I believe that despite all the challenges we all faced, we managed to deliver and get the people well informed about what had to be done. So that is one side, the operations. At the end of the day, the media is a business, and we have been badly affected by that as well, in terms of the revenue growth, etc., how it affects that. So all these factors have to be taken into account. The challenges are huge, are immense, and we have to step out every day to ensure we continue to deliver.
Yeah. Economic viability was a big challenge during COVID-19.
Definitely was. We are an organization that relies on the sales of the newspaper. So with the containment zones, with the COVID restrictions around the country, it affected us definitely. But in saying that, we also are mindful of the fact that we have other portals, the social media portals that we were able to sort of transition into and focus on. I suppose one of the lessons the pandemic has shown us or given us is adaptability and how we are able to embrace challenges and make the transition. So right now we realize that there is a space that we need to get into, that the Fiji Times needs to get into, and that's the digital space. And that's the focus that we are, that's an area that we are focusing on right now. And again, just what Vijay said, at the end of the day, it's a business.
Right, okay. So we will come talk about digital before we end the show. But I was talking now about the big thing on the horizon for many people, elections. And obviously it's an intense time for the media, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of tension. Everyone's on the lookout, how Vijay and the CFL's doing their coverage, how the Fiji Times and and its journalists, Fred and his team is doing their coverage. So, and looking out for any perceived bias, So how are you planning your coverage to ensure that everyone is adequately and covered, so that when people go to the elections in whenever, in these coming few months, that they are well informed of each party's position and each candidate's position?
Well, nothing changes. The code of ethics is there, and we discussed about that: accuracy, fairness, and balance. So everybody will be given that opportunity, and access will be a big issue to ensure that everybody says that we will be accessible at these times. Campaign meetings, we will ensure that all campaign meetings are covered. Also rotating the journalists to ensure they're covering the different parties, not that they just stuck with one party, and covering issues that really matter. Misinformation and disinformation always re-emerges at a higher level during the election period. Communal discord, racial hatred can re-emerge. So really assessing all of that and making sure that we stay within the guidelines. Ensuring that the people of the country get to hear all the voices on all the different issues that affect them, and then they make the decision on election day.
One of the issues the Vijay talked about was access, and I know that in the last elections, you had issues, and you had each political party, I think, Fred, if you recall, mentioning what their position was in the party, and some parties participated, some party, like Fiji First, didn't participate for some reason. So you're still going to reach out to all political parties?
Definitely. We let me just say that we are in exciting times, very, very exciting times. We are coming off COVID-19 restrictions in 2021. We are now into 2022. Thankfully, the borders have opened, and people have more, are able to travel and be a bit more freer than they were last year. As an organization, we are focused on the elections. We're very, very enthusiastic about what's coming up. Let's face it. You don't get these often. You don't get challenges like this every year. And all election years are exciting times for all journalists. Like Vijay said, we are focused on. We're focused on the base. We're focused on the basics, on ensuring there's fairness, there's balance, there's accuracy. We're also mindful of the amendments to the Electoral Act and what it entails. We're also mindful of the demands placed on the political parties. We also are mindful of what we can publish and what we can't. It's a big challenges before us, but exciting times ahead.
Right. And just want to touch on that, because one other thing, obviously, that's what people are watching out for is, hate speech, racial vindication, because sometimes it comes out to the fore. I know you were taken to court for, an article, letter that came in one of your e-talk things. So basically, guarding against that, and we're watching how you report these issues.
As I've stated, that we are an independent media organization, and we do not support any political party, any politician, and we also do not support any forms of discrimination against anyone.
Thank you.
Same position. We are Fiji Times. We have a brand that's 153 years old. It's a brand that we've taken ownership of, and I'd like to think that every journalist who works for the Fiji Times has actually taken ownership of the brand. It's very, very important. There are perceptions that will cast us aside as being anti-government. There are also perceptions that we may be pro-government. But I'd like to say that we're none of that. We're not pro-government. We're not anti-government, but we're definitely very, very pro-Fiji.
Naka. So that's the elections. I look forward to the coverage, Vijay, your interviews, and Fred, the people's coverage. We're going to talk about social media. It's grown very rapidly. It's changed society quite strongly, and in many ways has challenged traditional media, such that we're in. So, if you can just discuss how you're handling that. You talked about digital How has it affected your operations as traditional media? Obviously, the nature of it, handling the comments that come on board. So if before we go to break, just talking on your views just quickly on social media.
I'm always excited about new technology because, it's something that makes us do more for our audience. So social media, well, it's not the boogeyman. It's how we can use it in the right way to get the right information out using those different platforms.
Targeting different audiences.
Be it Facebook, which is the biggest social media platform at the moment, Instagram, TikTok has come up. It's how do we take that information out. So using that's why our brands exist on those social media platforms as well, to ensure we are in that platform where other types of information is being fed in. The other issue is that we are now starting to have direct discussions with people like Meta, who own Facebook. Recently on the Fijian Media Association editors trip, we had face-to-face discussions with Facebook because we've had to disable our Facebook comments. And we have had to do that because there is no feature on the Facebook pages where you can review the comments before they are published. And we also do not want any discriminatory remarks, etc. We have filters. We had tried the filters, but it did not work because people can use variation of words, of people's names, etc., and still leak through the system. So the best option was, let's disable it. And now we're in discussion with all editors, with Facebook, to ensure we give that freedom of speech to the people.
Right. Fred, they've been saying how many times that this will mean the death of print. How do you see this challenge or this new frontier?
Exciting. Exciting times ahead. And, one of the, as Vijay alluded to, we just got back from the Australian tour where we had the opportunity to meet up with editors in a similar position as I am in. So I was very, very fortunate to have been in very healthy discussions with the Sydney Morning Herald, understanding the mechanics of how they do their work and making the transition into the digital space. Yes, like I said it, we very exciting times, and I'm actually looking forward to enabling and empowering our people to get into this space. We now more than ever we realize that there's a space that we need to get into, and it's something that we need to focus on. We realize that readership habits have changed. We also realize that you look at the population figures that were released a while back. You have a large percentage of people who are below the age of 40. So when you consider that, you need to factor in other issues, the elections, the earning capability, and all of that. So when you look at that, you have to also accept that habits will definitely change, and for us the challenge is how we get ourselves into that space
to reach the audience where
Yes.
people are right now.
Yes.
All right. So look, Vijay, Fred, it's a tough job, full of pressure, stress, tension, intimidation, emotion, drama, all the serious stuff. And you've been in it for a long time, both of you. So before we end the show, what keeps you going as a journalist?
Well, it's the passion. It's the passion, it's the drive to do better. It's to ensure that we stand for the people. We look at our family members, the family plays a big part in our lives to keep us steady. It's never easy, sometimes very difficult. I've received personal threats that life is too short, that your Indian blood will spill on the streets, and all these other things. And it takes a lot to ensure that you stay strong, been accused of being anti-Christian in the last election, and when they found out that I'm a Methodist, then they said, oh, no, we take that back. So all those things happen. You get attacked based on your race. You get attacked based on your religion. You get attacked based on your family. And the other issue is you also have to make sure you are not seen with all different sorts of people. So you sort of, in a way, have to choose, and I'm sure all of us do that, who we can be seen with, who can we sit down and drink grog with, and just discuss everyday issues. You can't do that with everybody. So with that and if you stay true to your form in making sure that you stick to your profession, and even I just want to add, some journalists get carried away and just keep going on Facebook if they don't like a certain politician, what they say. Even that is not right, because if you stay true to your profession, you have to disengage from all those and ensure that you are impartial. And it's not easy. So the threats, all these other issues at play, and you've got a family to feed, family to look after, they also indirectly get the pressure, and what you are doing, it's tough.
Right. Fred, what keeps you going?
No fancy words, just passion, and more passionate. I'm inspired, I'm motivated by the fact that I can make a difference. I'm motivated by the fact that there are people out there who have different opinions, people out there who have problems. There are people out there who have major challenges in their lives. And for a lot of them, there is no other avenue for them to vent their frustrations, for them to talk about their problems. And I'd like to see myself, or I'd like to think that we have a platform where we are able to get these views across. We have a platform where we are able to hold the government accountable, power to account, ensuring that whatever happens, there's accountability. Whatever happens, there's transparency. So for me, it's about that. It's about being. I'm very passionate about what I do. Very passionate about being a journalist. I'm getting on to 30 years in journalism now, and I'm still passionate about it. And I'd like to think, finally, that there is room for mainstream media. There is a place in this country for us to be able to disseminate information that will allow people, every individual in this country, to make a well-informed decision every day.
Fred Wesley, Vijay Narayan, thank you for joining me on the show.
Naka.
Naka. That was the show for tonight. Join me again next Thursday at the same time. Good night.